We're pleased to be joined now in the studio by Byron Cancelmo. He is a local musician, part of the Byron Legacy Show, which will be performing at Shain Park alongside the West Bloomfield School District Chorale on September 8th from 7 o'clock to 9 p.m. Byron, welcome to the show. Appreciate having you on.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about this show coming up in September. It's a little bit more of a special show. I know that normally it's you, it's your wife, and it's some of your band members, but you're kind of expanding out and adding more people in. It's a little more fun.
Right, absolutely. So the Bloomfield, Birmingham was supposed to do concerts in the park last year, but it was canceled because of COVID. They canceled again this year. Then last minute, 4 months ago, they decided to have those concerts. So every Wednesday night from 7 to 9 p.m. we do the concerts. We're going to be the last of the concert series this year. So September 8th will be the last one. And I wanted to make it special. I'm from West Bloomfield. Birmingham's right next door. Shain Park is right in the center of Birmingham, close to Townsend Hotel. Most people are familiar with the 220 on Merrill. It's all right there, There's ample amount of parking. You get a lot of residents that can come through, and typically it draws a few hundred people in the audience. We did it 4 or 5 years ago, and I think there were about 300 people out there. Our show, the Byron Legacy Show, is an 11-piece band now. So we have a large horn section, and we've got multiple singers, backing vocalists, and I love the sound of the human voice. I took chorale myself, and I traveled Europe with our chorale group, and I find the human voice together in harmony intoxicating, almost as exciting as hearing great horn section together. You have a great vocal section together. So we're doing a couple patriotic songs 3/4 into our set, and I thought it would be a great idea to have Sheryl Hauk and her Lakers Express, specifically chorale, come in and join us on those 2 songs. So I had asked her to if she would be willing to participate, and she quickly responded that sounded wonderful, but she had to get some clearance with the local school, West Bloomfield High School various folks she had to speak to about this, because we are still in a COVID situation, safety protocols, and whether or not that'll work out. And it did work out, so we did get confirmation on that, and I'm super excited. So it's a pretty good sized production, and we're gonna sing songs from Tom Jones, big hits from his early days, from his early career. So nothing new that when the MTV, we're not singing any poppy stuff. It's all classic Tom Jones, Neil Diamond, Elvis Presley. My wife sings Karen Carpenter, Nancy Sinatra. She even has a Patti Smythe song that we've incorporated some horns with. So, we love to thrill the audiences with our music and performances, and we've been getting incredible feedback from our show. So I wanted to try to get word out, get as many people as possible to come out and just celebrate the beginning of the school year. We're kind of somewhat safe with COVID, and just be able to get in the outdoor situation and put on a great free concert for everybody is, I'm excited. I can't wait to hear Sheryl's students' voices come together on these patriotic songs. It's just going to be, that alone is worth coming out. I do have Sheryl Hauk here, and I invited her to come by and just kind of talk about her students a little bit and what they've achieved. Some of her past students, what where they've actually gone to since leaving West Bloomfield High School under her direction. It's pretty fascinating stuff. If you don't mind, I'll have Sheryl Hauk come on.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll bring Sheryl Hauk in. She is the choir director at West Bloomfield High School, and her students will, of course, be joining Byron at this show with the Byron Legacy Show, bringing Vegas to you, starring, of course, Byron Cancelmo, who we've had on with us today as well. That show's 7 o'clock to 9 p.m. on September 8th at Shain Park in Birmingham. It's a free concert, and Sheryl, having students participate in this concert with a professional musician at a show that has a wide range of an audience. As Byron said, they've had in the past hundreds of people that have shown up to this. Having that opportunity, especially after a school year last year, where a lot of those opportunities either were transitioned into virtual, which is a completely different element, brings a completely different element to performance than an in-person performance, but also having that renewed energy. What does that bring to your student musicians, especially those upperclassmen who are going back in this year with one last opportunity to make those memories?
Yeah. Well, Tyler, it's really exciting to have this time with Byron. We have sung with Byron for, I think, almost 10 years. So we've known and had relationships with him. And when he said, hey, could you do the first concert with me? I'm at first, oh, it's COVID, you know, how can we do this with COVID? And yet he has made it so that it's outside. He has this wonderful playlist, and you know, the best thing he doesn't even know about is the 2 songs that we're singing with him it's September 8th, and they're about America. And with September 11th coming up, we've been able to really understand the importance of these songs that he's going to sing. And the kids, we talked about it yesterday, they weren't born in 2001, but now they're singing the song and they're backing Byron up. And I think that they appreciate it more than ever because of COVID.
And on top of that, you mentioned the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks coming up, and that many of your students, or really all of your students at this point, were not even born when those attacks happened. And you can get a lot of education on that. I'm sure that's something that's brought up in their history classes or social studies classes. It's something that they've probably discussed with their families before, but you get a different element of the education on what happened in the aftermath of that from experiencing that through music. And music not only helps people through some difficulties in their regular life, but but ultimately helped our country also in some ways, and others, as did sports, through that. How have you been able to incorporate that kind of a lesson into this opportunity for your students, to not only have them get this great opportunity with a local musician in front of a lot of people, especially after the year they've been through, but also to better understand the impact that music can have in the wake of tragedy, not only in response to COVID, but in response to something that they weren't alive for, that ultimately changed the world that they came into.
It's the perfect window to explore it. And when we sang America yesterday for the first time and put the harmonies to it, the kids were like, okay, we're putting harmonies. And it was a regular rehearsal. And then we stopped and we said, guys, let's talk about, you know, America and the sacrifices. And we had a 10-minute discussion, and then we sang it again. And that's what's so great about music. It wasn't the same. They were putting dynamics and all those musical elements together, but to make it have more meaning. So it's going to be even more exciting to be with Byron, you know, at the park and have all of these people, you know, appreciating this music about America and our great country we live in.
How excited are the students to perform at this concert coming up?
I'm laughing because when Byron and I started to talk about it, he's like, oh, what if you just have 4 kids? What if you just... So right now we have 16 in Laker Express, and I said, who wants to go? And every hand went up. And so they're all so excited to do this. And you know, Byron, thank you so much from them. So yes, they all can't wait.
We're joined by Sheryl Hauk. She is the choir director at West Bloomfield High School, as well as Byron Cancelmo from the Byron Legacy Show. Sheryl's students, 16 of them, in fact, will be performing with Byron and the Byron Legacy Show from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock p.m. at Shain Park, in a free concert on September 8th. So thank you, Sheryl. Let's bring Byron back in for another couple of minutes as we begin to wrap this up. So Byron, we talked with Sheryl about the impact that this is having on her students. From your perspective and your band's perspective, bringing these 16 students in, having that extra element, you spoke earlier on your appreciation for the beauty in the combined human voice and music, but also having that impact of knowing that this is such a great opportunity coming out of what we've experienced over the past year and a half for these students, but also a teaching opportunity in the wake of as we approach the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks.
I'm just happy to, you know, have the mind to ask the question: are these students available? Are you willing to do something like this? Because it's something I would have wanted as a young student. You know, I always looked up to peers, but you typically don't have access. It's very difficult to have access, and you know, by opening myself up and my show to local talent, you know, especially young students, you know, they're going to remember that for the rest of their lives. You know, I know they will. You know, and it's meaningful to me. My wife is actually going to be singing one of the patriotic songs. You know, her father served in the Navy, and so she's going to speak about that right before the performance. So there's a lot of deep meaning to what we're doing, not only with the songs that they're going to be performing, but you know, just the patriotic songs and just our show in general. I take a lot of passion and pride in having the same musicians I've had over the past 8 years that are sheet readers, but they don't even need most of them don't even need the sheets anymore, except for the horn section, of course, because it gets pretty intense for those guys. It's a pretty high-end horn section. When if you go back and listen to early Tom Jones songs, it's a full orchestra. I mean, these guys are duplicating that, and I think people of all ages should come up to the show and see and hear what the yesteryears were really like with these extraordinary artists, Tom Jones, Neil Diamond, Elvis, done properly, respectfully, without dressing up with jumpsuits and acting egotistical. We're just pouring it out from our hearts and our lungs, and we're giving as much quality vocal air as possible.
We're joined by Byron Cancelmo from the Byron in Motion band and the Byron Legacy Show, which will be performing with 16 students from West Bloomfield High School on September 8th from 7 o'clock to 9 p.m. in a free concert at Shain Park. And Byron, we spoke to Sheryl earlier about the excitement and the feelings and the emotions from her students coming back out into a performance like this in front of so many people potentially, and what impact that's having on them. For you and for your fellow musicians in the Byron Legacy Show and in your Byron in Motion band, coming back out into these more regular performances after a year that was really tough for a lot of musicians and other performers and entertainers. What are the emotions for you and for your band? What are the feelings for you and your band as you're coming back into more of these regular performances, seeing people in the flesh enjoying music, especially given what we've all been through in the last year and a half?
It's a feeling of we're just enlightened, and we feel appreciated even more so of our ability to perform live music and to entertain an audience. Our first dinner show was May 7th. We did that over on the east side, and we had about 200 people in a room that sat 600, so it felt empty, but because of COVID there was restrictions, but every single one of those audience members were just enamored with the show, and I could feel just the energy off the audience more so than in the past. And we were treated like celebrities after the show just by the audience, just engaging back with us, saying how appreciative they were that we made the risk, did the show, because May 7th was kind of early still to make a decision like that. But since then, all the band members, I'm glad they all rehearsed during COVID, because we weren't very rusty when we came back. We were doing various Zoom sessions, Facebook Lives. Every musician. It's a little bit harder for the horn section, but as singers, it was and other musicians, it's easier for us to kind of collaborate and do these Zoom performances or Facebook Lives. And my wife and I sang several times on Facebook Live during COVID, so we kept up with it. But there's nothing like stepping out and singing in front of a live audience and doing it again. We went from stage to street overnight when COVID hit. Our last show was February 29th at the Andiamo Celebrity Showroom, and that was our biggest show to date. And then literally 2 weeks later, everyone had to pack up and go home, and people are selling their equipment. They didn't know what to do, how are they going to pay their bills, and it got scary for full-time musicians. My wife and I are blessed. We have full-time day jobs, so we were able to carry through. There was furloughs, there was some layoffs, but having things somewhat return and everyone's getting back to the music world, the musicians they're super engaged, super focused, and they're honing in their craft even more than before. They're taking every note seriously. They're taking every show seriously, every song seriously. Our rehearsals have gotten a lot better as a result. I think we've become even more of a family, to be honest with you, because they're less diluted now with all the performances that they typically do throughout the year, because a lot of the musicians we have in the band will fill in with some other bands. So there's not a lot of live music going on right now. So I'm actually in a really nice position to have these guys kind of with the show and really focused in on what we do. And like I mentioned, it's like a family. These are family members that are on stage with us.
Does it change the music for you what we've experienced this past year, the music, the performance, everything that goes into your show, does what we've experienced through this pandemic, through this crisis, and everything that's come from it, for you and for your bandmates, does it change the music coming back?
It does. I mean, you're hearing it more. You're taking it in. You're not turning and talking. You know, and audience members aren't really talking to one another. They're watching the show and listening to music and getting up and dancing more than I've ever seen. You know, that could change. It could dwindle like everything else does. But for right now, I'm absorbing it and really appreciating it. And you know, we're building a really strong fan base right now because people see that we're pouring out our hearts and souls up there. My wife and I have been singing together for a long, long period of time, and she's been enjoying her lead vocal roles. Her Karen Carpenter has a lot of soft and wonderful ballads, and those are striking and engaging. The audiences are really appealing to those songs as well, and listening more. So we're listening more to each other, and I hope, you know, when COVID's all over, that I really believe we just have good relations in general, and people are listening to the notes more. They're listening to lyrics more, and they're getting engaged, and they're, you know, less busy with their personal lives as a result of you know, our median state of COVID here.
You can see Byron and the Byron Legacy Show, as well as 16 students from the choir at West Bloomfield High School at their free show coming up on September 8th, 7 o'clock to 9 p.m. at Shain Park. Sheryl, thank you for joining us, and Byron, thanks for being with us today.
Pleasure. Thank you, Tyler.